It was supposed to be an easy overnight camping trip. Just me and my buddy Mark, deep in the woods, miles away from anyone. No cell service, no distractions, just a fire, some beers, and the sounds of nature. We found the perfect clearing near a small stream and set up camp as the sun dipped below the trees. The forest was alive with the usual nighttime noises. Crickets, rustling leaves, the occasional hoot of an owl. Everything felt normal. But then, right as the fire was burning strong, something changed. It was subtle at first. The crickets stopped. The air felt thick, heavy, like the whole forest was holding its breath. Mark noticed it too. He threw another log onto the fire and muttered, "Weird." That's when we heard it. Footsteps. Not from an animal, but slow, deliberate steps in the leaves, just beyond the firelight. I grabbed my flashlight and scanned the trees. Nothing. The beam barely cut through the dense darkness. Mark chuckled nervously. Probably just a deer. But I knew better. I grew up hunting, and whatever was out there wasn't moving like any animal I'd ever tracked. The footsteps stopped, then started again. Closer. We sat frozen, listening. Then, snap. A branch cracked, loud and sharp, like someone had stepped on it. Mark whispered, "Okay, what the hell was that?" Before I could answer, the fire flickered, like a sudden gust of wind had tried to snuff it out. But there was no wind. The air was completely still. Then we heard something else. Breathing. Heavy, ragged breathing, just beyond the tree line. Not human, not animal. Deep and guttural, like something trying to hold back a growl. Mark shot up, grabbing the small hunting knife he brought. "Screw this," he muttered. "We should leave." But before we could move, something rushed through the trees. Fast. The sound was like dry leaves being kicked up in a whirlwind, circling our campsite. But we saw nothing. No shape, no movement, just the sound. Then the worst part, the smell. It hit us like a wave. A mix of damp earth, rotting meat, and something metallic like blood. It was overpowering, making my stomach turn. Mark was panicking now, and so was I. "Get in the tent," I whispered. We scrambled inside, zipping it up tight, as if that thin layer of fabric could actually protect us. Mark still clutched the knife, his knuckles white. Then, the tapping started. Light at first, like fingers drumming against the fabric. Tap, tap, tap. My blood ran cold. Mark whispered, "No way. No freaking way." The tapping grew harder, more insistent. Like whatever was out there was testing us. Then came the worst moment of my life. The tent started to press inward. A shape, tall and massive, was leaning against it from the outside. I could see the outline of fingers, long, clawed fingers, dragging slowly down the fabric. My breath caught in my throat. Mark was shaking. I grabbed his arm and mouthed, "Don't move." The thing outside let out a sound, low, vibrating, almost like a growl mixed with static. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was something else. Then everything stopped. The pressure on the tent vanished. The sounds outside went completely silent. For what felt like an eternity, we just sat there, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. Then blackness, not sleep, not unconsciousness. Just nothing. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on my back, heart racing. The tent was quiet. Mark was still clutching the knife, his eyes wide with confusion. What happened?" he muttered. I reached for my phone. Dead. I asked Mark to check his. Also dead. Both were fully charged when we got in the tent. There was no explanation. We unzipped the tent, stepping out into the cold, damp air. The fire was nothing but ash, our food and supplies completely untouched. It was like nothing had ever been there. But something had been. Right at the edge of our campsite, where the firelight had barely reached the night before, we saw them. Footprints. Huge, deep impressions in the dirt. And not human, not even close. They were long, clawed, and whatever made them had been standing just feet away from our tent. Neither of us spoke. We packed up our gear as fast as we could and got the hell out of there, not saying a word until we were miles away. When we finally talked, we both admitted the same thing. We didn't remember falling asleep. It was like something had just erased time. We never went back to that campsite, never even went camping again, and whatever was out there that night, I don't think it wanted us to leave. I think it wanted us to stay.